Okay, we're live, Reverend Oliver.
Welcome everyone again to our weekly webinar, Stopping the Violence in America. Basically, when we first started off, it started off with, looking at guns as a menace to our society, menace to our community, and then the guns getting in the wrong hands. And as I start from the beginning, I've always started with what are the guns? Who holds the guns? A gun is an inanimate object. It's a dangerous object, but also it's an inanimate object. It doesn't pick itself up. Someone picks it up. And we're starting to look at, okay, someone picks that gun up, then what are the motivating factors that cause another person to pick that gun up and harm his fellow human being? And we've had some extraordinary speakers that came on with different angles and different categories of how those persons who have picked up those guns were motivated by what? Were triggered by what? Well, today is January 25th. Today is going to be an open discussion day. And because one of our persons that were supposed to come could not, it was a conflict of interest. But I thought this would be a great opportunity to discuss together in an open discussion. And I will pose some questions in regards to the previous different speakers, and also some things that are on my mind as well. Again, I want to thank everyone always who are faithfully coming on, and just encourage you to bring others if you would also. And also, if you have any person or anybody in mind that you thought would be a very good person or has some sort of contribution to this particular topic, please let me know. Let's invite them and let's speak with them so we can put them also on our schedule and hear from them. We've heard from extraordinary people thus so far. And I was speaking to my dear sister Nadia before we came on. And one of the things I said, if we collectively start putting all these passionate persons on together, we can come up with some really national solutions. But it's not an easy process, but it's a process that I believe will come to final fruition. We want to thank everyone again for coming on. One of the things I would like to open up the discussion with, and I do see, before I do that, I would like to acknowledge the fact that I saw her give a wonderful talk this morning on the YCLC, is it YCLC? World Christian Leadership Conference. This morning they had an hour-long program, and we do have our illustrious and very profound speaker and Christian leader, Rosario, Mrs. Bishop Rosario, on the call too, who is from New Jersey. So we're glad to see that she's on as well. But I would like to ask, as you know, that the origin of this program started with Mother Moon, who's Dr. Akshay Moon, was very concerned about the gun violence in America. She said we need to really start to address that. So that was to spark that on. Previously, I had been doing webinars on my own prior to that. And one of the topic of that particular webinar was the African Americans, mental health in the African American community. And a reason why I started that is because specifically in the African American community, a community is targeted as being a community that the gun violence seemed to be prevailing, and it's not the only community, because as we have gone through this whole gun violence and violence in America, we see there's categories of different persons and different communities and different cultures who are victims, but perpetrators of violence. And that one's because I was looking at what are the mental health issues that are not addressed, that has compounded a subculture in those particular communities that will trigger and that will engender, if you will, violent behavior. They need to be addressed. That means if they're addressed, that means if there needs to be addressed, it means there is some avenue for the reduction of the crime if you look at some of the root causes of the crime. And I don't think we're looking at the root causes of many of the reasons why in that particular community. And in other communities, people have other issues that they pick up guns, they or seem to feel they are determined to help, or not help, but to hurt your fellow man. So one of the things that came into my mind today, and I thought we would discuss, when we go to the guns, we don't talk about the guns specifically, but I would like to talk about the guns particularly. In the last 2 days, I think we've had 5 or 6, shootings that will curl your toes, basically. And I think we've become so numb to it because it's happening so frequently. I remember the violence that I hear, the gun violence that I hear in the numbers of 11 people, 5 people, in the last 2 or 4 days. We even our own selves who are detached from the situation would be destroyed. Now it's like a common thing to hear every day, but we're still distraught internally because something is fundamentally wrong. And we need to understand what that is. And we need to begin to address it very seriously. It cannot be the norm of the day, And so going back to the guns, I thought about, there are different viewpoints on gun violence and the guns, and people are saying, well, I remember a doctor or bishop or Mrs. Dr. McAllister. She came in and shared that deep story about her daughter being a victim of gun violence, coming just on vacation from college or spring vacation, just standing outside innocently and was shot dead. She mentioned that some stats on other countries like Canada and other places like that, they have a very strict gun laws. And the stats say that because they look seriously at it, you see a reduction in crime, at least minimum gun crime. There's others who say the guns, let's make those who make guns, let the manufacturers be responsible as well. What kind of laws that we should enact? But then there's other people who are on the other end saying that maybe if we can be armed, and there's some stats that says that when people have, unconcealed weapons on there, they prevent others coming in, other crimes, gun crimes, or the perpetrators, ironically, are thinking of their own lives. Can you believe it? They're thinking of themselves being hurt, but they don't think about when they are hurting others and the consequences that will entail. So we're looking at that from that perspective. Then some of the things we discussed was on mental health, as I shared before. We have mental health issues in all communities. What are the triggers? And I think when you look at the different cultures, different categories, different interests, economic backgrounds. What triggers people to perpetuate violent behavior? Each one, we all know that the trigger is, I'm a religious man. We know that is stemming from mankind's severing its relationship with God from the beginning. Thus, we start developing different habits and behaviors that are contrary to our original nature that God gave us when He breathed the breath of life in us. It has been distorted, and God is in the business of undistorting it and bringing us back. But in that process, we still have to deal with the facts and reality, how it's perpetuated, and it's still people are still being hurt and being victims. Also, we had different people who came on and they shared about the different prevention processes that they use, and interventions, and post situations that post-traumatic situations that they had to deal with also. And when we looked at all of them, we found out that each one has very, very beautiful and very, very substantive, if you will, features to them that played a critical part in the reduction of crime or preventing crime or helping afterwards people not to do it again, or going back and forth to prisons, like recidivism and all of those things that has everything to do with people coming in and out of the system and not being healed. And if they're not being healed, then they also become, again, perpetuators of crime. I remember not doctor, but one of the police officers, Lieutenant Thomas from Macon, Georgia. He was very, 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 very powerful, because he said that not only do we have a subculture, but we have social media who is fueling the subculture. So they're not bringing healing or solutions, but they're perpetuating the situation of violence and ill behaviors, and condoning it if you will, by glorifying these bad language and et cetera, if you know what I'm saying. So he brought up a very pertinent point, and that was, how does the social media play a critical role in what we're experiencing? So I'd just like to open up for discussion for anyone to open up and share what they're thinking. I shared a few points that I thought were pertinent points for open discussion. And a lot of you on this call have been listening. And so you too have a wellspring of information from our speakers, and you probably have your own individual opinions that we might not have been able to hear. So this would be an opportunity for you to share those things with us. And so I'm not going to call anyone. I know that my dear friend Madeline, Dr. Madeline Alexander is on, and she's always been a stalwart person in helping us to share some different points. So I want to open up the floor to anyone who would like to begin to share some points that I brought up, or anything else on your mind as it concerns or in conjunction with stopping the violence in America, and also those inanimate objects, guns. Floor is open.
Reverend Oliver.
Yes.
I'm Wayne Hankins, and I have to say I really appreciate the balanced approach that you're mentioning today. Where not only are we looking at, as you mentioned, the realities and the particulars of any particular community of mental health and the reasons for gun violence, but you are bringing up what is the original cause of this? Where did it really begin? Why, going back generation after generation, this is still a fundamental problem of human relationships. Violence, inability to get along, inability to love or care. So bringing this point up, I think is really important, because not only have we learned from the speakers what the issues are that they have experienced firsthand, that they know is a reason, but how much greater the power they would have is bringing that component in with the original cause of conflict, the original cause where we do have shown over and over again the inability to love. And that is going back to the earliest of human origins, and bringing that up in an understandable, practical way to apply it to what we already know. But I think it's a crucial part of the solution to get into that. So I appreciate you bringing that up. And that's my comment today.
Thank you, Wayne. I really appreciate that. It is true. Last week, Bishop Watts came on from Baltimore, and I really appreciate his approach, because actually from the beginning, when you look at all communities in the world, what is the origin of a lot of the pain and suffering people, and they internalize it and they express it in different ways, it's a lack of love. How much have we loved these communities? We haven't. So you're right. And each, like I said, it's true. There's triggers from different communities, and we have to look at them equally, and then together and look at it from the whole picture, is that it stems from a man severing his relationship with God, and we're very much off course. Amen. Nadia, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just was really struck by several weeks ago. I mean, I love all these programs. They're so wonderful. But the healing circle, to go back to the African idea of you don't want to bring shame to your family, and that's why the kids don't do wrong. And with their healing circle that the couple talked about, they really, I think, went to the root, gathered people, and they traveled around the country wherever they were asked to go, and they took time to actually get things done and help people to heal. And so I just wanted to mention that, because that really stuck in my mind.
Yes, thank you. I agree with you. One of the things that Wayne and Nadia both, I mentioned Dr. Watts yesterday, Bishop Watts, and Bishop Watts just took boys out and risked a whole lot, right? Because he took them out. And usually he didn't give up on them. He took them to the mall, and they stole royally. They made more havoc but he took them back to the mall. And he kept taking them back, and he kept taking them and loving them and helping them to see it from a different viewpoint. And a lot of those boys became viable citizens, family men, people who start their family. And one of the reasons why they started their families is because Bishop Watts has a wife and 2 children that, he's always with, and they were watching a model that they particularly did not see all the time in their personal lives that was effective. We have to look at those things too. And then last thing too, out of that, what I got out of him was consistency. Consistency is very important. And I'm going to move to, but you know, I think I want to mention this. I was shocked. I was a psych major in college. And, you know, when we think about schizophrenia, people think it's like a split personality. But in the world of the psychology, split personality has its own category. Schizophrenia is a split mind. And when they analyze how do we get a split mind, it stems from, in the book read, it stems from kids or human beings seeing contradiction in their own home. Wow. You hear what I'm saying? They see contradiction in their own home, and that triggers a split mind. So family is critically important. So those kids don't have consistency, then what's the result? The result will be the behaviors that we do see. Reverend Franklin, would you like to share something?
Yeah, thank you so much, Reverend Oliver. And I want to thank everybody who is here on the call. And I have a deep, wonderful appreciation for UPF for sponsoring these dialogues, because, you know, please pardon me for, I'm just getting on because I completely forgot, but I am so inspired with some of the featured guests and some of the conversation and the content of some of the participants on this call have made. And one of the things in which my wife and I were watching yesterday, although it's a different subject, but I think the analogy is the same. It was about this one doctor who actually showed real evidence that his research and his way of treating cancer was actually healing people. And you had the FDA that put him to court many, many times. And he had his patients, every time he went to court, over 20 times, his patients that had inoperable brain cancer, tumors in their brain. After 3 to 6 months, they were treated, they were healed. And the FDA kept fighting. So, so the analogy in which I'm taking away is that this is really a spiritual war. This is really spiritual. And I believe that it's a matter of our spiritual leaders to be on the forefront to address this concern. Because what my takeaway is that all these beautiful people who are doing the grassroots work, this beautiful pastor who you all have mentioned earlier, is taking these young men, knowing they're bad, seeing how they rob, but still had belief and confidence and faith. He did not give up. And one of the things in which I found so moving, and these beautiful people, these beautiful men and women of God who are taking responsibility to address this concern, is that they did not give up on these young men and women in these troubled neighborhoods, but they began to listen to their story. And once people, I don't care how bad you are, I don't care how much crime you committed, but if somebody is in the position where they're actually present and they're actually really listening to you, that is so profoundly therapeutic. And so, the point that I'm saying in all this is that the answers are there. And so the hope is that this venue and this circumstance will empower the will of the religious community, or just righteous men and women, conscientious people, to come together, to put these forces together in order that we will be able to make it abundantly clear to the powers that be, to the system, that here lies the answer. Make it so obvious that they have to come to a natural subjugation. And that takes a lot of power, a lot of commitment, and a lot of love. But with God's power, and we harness his will, we can resolve this situation, because this is far beyond America. This is an international effect. This affects international. And as we get this right, the world will get its morals right, because they're looking at America, how America is dealing with its own mental discrepancies. And as we work together to bring about this awareness of these real possibilities that will result in healing, within that will allow us to be able to come to the point where we will actually become one nation under God, because we are addressing all the circumstances of all Americans. And then we can be in a position where we can assume the proper able position and be that moral example of leadership that the world is longing for us to become. So those are my takeaways.
So much, Reverend Franklin. I really appreciate your saying that. Yesterday, one of my speakers that was supposed to be on, his name is Gerald, and Gerald is one of the highest officials in HUD. And I met him via trying to work with the opportunity zones. And of course, I do have another vehicle called the National Faith-Based Empowerment Coalition, meaning the faith community is taking responsibility to go nationally to address the issues, the ills that are plaguing our community, and how we can bring resolute to that. I was speaking with him. He's in a hospital because of some surgery, and that's why he couldn't come on. But he said something pertinent to me. He said, Reverend Oliver, I disseminate funds, if you will, for all kinds of social programs and different programs from HUD. But the ones that have shown measurable results in the change in at-risk communities have always been when religious leaders were always, even though there's practical programs that are going, because you need the practicality, those things, looking at the prevention processes and everything else. But when the religious leaders stepped in and helped that process, you would see a measurable change. And that's what he said to me last night or night before last when we were discussing that. So we hope to have him on. So thank you, Reverend Franklin, for those words.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Anyone else? How about Dr. Madeline, my, commentary? Are you available?
Yes. Greetings, greetings, greetings. And I try to fall back to give everyone else an opportunity to speak. But as we look upon the ills of society, we know that it's as Reverend Franklin said, we know that it's spiritual warfare. And in that process, when something is happening in the spirit, it needs a body. So as we're talking about the thought process, Reverend Oliver, you mentioned schizophrenia. Schizophrenia sometimes don't show up until the age of 18 and 26. And that's a lot of, the age we're talking about when we're talking about some of these incidents. Unfortunately, over the weekend, we heard the age 72 and the age 67. So you always say, Reverend Oliver, that a gun is an inanimate object, and if you lay it down, then that's it. We have guns being sold like candy with no type of instruction, with no type of training, with no type of wherewithal, and it comes to the point where it appears that people are saying, oh, well, he got a gun, let me get a gun. And then not having the character or concept of what the gun is actually to be used for. So when our heart is in the place that we're sick and tired of being sick and tired of this senseless violence, for the pastors, the faith-based community to get involved, that is commendable and necessary. I'll tell you, what Bishop on last week, he just blessed my soul because he was consistent and he did not give up. So that's one lane that we can, go into to mentor a child if God has called you to that, because what I know and understand, everybody's not called to that. But we have to know what we're called to, and we have to operate in that vein. The second part of it, we can expect for our political leaders to do it, but we have to make them responsible in the positions that they're in. So we might want to write our senators. We might want to write, those public figures that's in our community, that let them know that we have a voice and it's time for a change. So there's more than one way to pursue it, and we have to pursue every avenue that's available to us. So that's my take on it. And again, I thank you, my brother from another mother. God bless you.
So, thank you very much. So Bishop Rosario, you must have sensed that I was going to call you, so you put that hand up first. So, yeah. So welcome. Good to see you. I saw your wife this morning in the YCLC, and it's always good to see you guys as well. I know you also have been an intricate part of the community as well. So we love to hear from you.
Praise God. Peace and blessings to each and every one of us. Everything that Dr. Martin said, Alexander, is very important for our daily walk, because this is a daily walk and a daily war that we have together to be able to find the solutions that God has already given us, and how we implement those with government, and we implement them with our communities to make sure that we are not shortchanged in the natural with our politicians to get us the funds that we need to be able to make a difference. I've been doing this battle for a long time and working with the communities and here in the Bronx and abroad, because the devil don't change. He's the same devil all over the place, and he has no respect of man. He's black, he's white, he's yellow. He doesn't have any respect of man. But what I have been trying to figure out through the years is to understand the spiritual battle that we do have against that evil spirit that doesn't respect anyone. And how do we fight it also in the natural with a natural understanding? We could label it with many different names, but it is the same evil. So what I've been looking at is how do we help those families that are already damaged in their DNA, and they have destroyed their children by the drugs and alcoholism that they have been using. So when I went through a part in the year of 1985 and 86 and 87, where they were giving birth to so many children that were already condemned to death, we could say, because they were born drug addicts. And you could see their withdrawals and what they were going through. And then the parent could not take care of them. So what the grandparent would take care of them. But we didn't realize that there was a problem, a humanistic problem in their DNA, that they had to be taken care from a child in the natural. And then we take that spiritual component that we know that is an evil spirit that took control of that parent and addicted their children. So now how do we come back to be able to get the help that we need from above to set those children free? And again, when I look at those children that become 10, 15 years old and they say they will never prosper, because I had a couple of them in our congregation in our daycare, where we were able to nurse them back to good health. We were able to, through prayer and counseling, and today they are a product of the love that the house of worship gave them, and their teachers and their professionals. Two of them became lawyers and the other became teachers, where they said that they will never succeed because of the background that they came from. But we know God is a miracle working God. And as we give them the love of God and we teach them and help them and counsel them, we could restore them. It's restoring the whole family. And the whole problem is that we have in our communities is the family component. If the family component is broken, we have broken children. We have broken adults. And we need to be able to minister back to the whole family. Being able to say, God is still on his throne. God is God. He's not a religion. He's not a denomination. And he is God, our Heavenly Father, that's able to help us all to restore the love that needs to be given to that child when they're young. It's easier to give love to a child when they're big and they're 18 and 19 and 20 years old. But they really need it when they're young, when they're developing their feeling, their pattern of thought. And I think that, with these programs that we're trying to bring awareness and create more awareness, take the guns out, give something back. When you take something out, could you put something back in? So we have to be able to understand that there is a problem. The church has a problem, but the main problem is outside the church, of people that do not have any particular faith. Faith is faith. And with all due respect, Christian faith is good. Jewish faith is good. Muslim faith is good. As long as you have faith, you practice the teachings of your belief that are the same, the commandments, the love of God, loving God over all the things, loving your neighbor. So faith to me is very important. Wherever it's coming from, it has to be taught with a lot of love and a lot of compassion, so that we may be able to help our young people. I gotta just say, I wasn't brought up in the church. I come to the Lord from the street because I didn't want to get run over by a truck. So I got out the streets. God saved me and transformed my life and took me out of a bad walk of life, because at that particular moment, I didn't know that there was something greater out there. So I was just protecting my community as a gang leader, and my community had to be protected, and we were Black and Hispanics that came together in the Melrose Project. I didn't want to put out there. And there was a lot of things happening in the late 50s, and we needed to protect each other. But I found out later on that the gift of protection comes from God. And when the Lord saved my life, I went back to my community to work the streets. Here I am at 78 years old and still working the streets, and being able to know that God is real, psychology is real, and that we need each other. We need the professions in the natural and in the spiritual to create one beautiful team to be able to heal the ills of our society. But I think our society ill is in the family, the breakdown of the family. So I want to be able to say we need to be able to restore the family. We need to be able to restore the grandparents back to the family, not throw them and put them away in a nursing home where they could be of service in the home, helping us taking care of our grandchildren or great-grandchildren, so that the family would stay together, because there's a big disconnect. Even in the church, I go to senior citizen home, I find clergy that are there, no one goes to see them. I find deacons and people there that used to be in the church, all that, nobody goes to see them. Before they were in the home helping together, you know, bringing the family, keeping the family together. And we need to be able to bring that respect, where there was respect for the elders, where there was love for the elders, where there was love for women that were pregnant, and you see them come on the bus, you get up and give them your seat. And you didn't even have to be a believer. It was just something that was implanted into our tradition. Because I seen, you know, people without faith that when I was coming up, if I see a woman coming into or an elderly coming into the bus, and they were pregnant or they were elderly, I get up and give them my seat, because that was taught to me by my parents. And African American at that particular time, we didn't call nobody African American at that time. They had, you know, because my community was that. And there was a lot of Italians, but my main community was that. They had the same thing, and we didn't serve the Lord, but we protected our elders. And we respect, because that was something that was put in us where they came from, down South Carolina, Alabama, and they brought this back, you know, and they were brought up in the city. So I'm saying that I think that we have to go back to not only teaching the principles of belief, but the principles of respect to our community. So I want to thank you for this beautiful, you know, panel that you have. And I heard some beautiful things in the little time that I got in my heart. Feels good, because I think that I don't want to only have sound bites. You know, I have a lot of them. I do that with the mayor, and I do that with the governor, and I do that with the borough and everybody. And how can we get it to be implemented in our house of worships, in our community? Because the ideas are here. Now, how do we get it out to make sure that our young people and elders, because our elders have lost their way also, you know, and give it back and bring back the respect of elders to the house of worship, because elders have a lot of experience, negative and positive. So again, Reverend Oliver, I want to bless you. Thank you for allowing me to express a little. I will be joining on. My wife has something that she wants to also add. God bless.
Thank you so much. Pass it on. Go ahead, Bishop.
Understanding the spiritual aspect of our calling as ministers, as clergy, and, you know, to teach in our churches, to teach and all that. But however, we have an area that, you know, clergy cannot just get into. You know, we have kids that are already on the streets. You know, we have organizations like, you know, Life Up, Guns Down, Life Up, many organizations in the Bronx. And we need those other organizations that they may not be faith-based, but they needed to reach out into the streets, into the kids. We have another organization in the Bronx where every week they get the gang members, and they become past gang members together for a weekly dinner to be able to get the kids that are in the streets. And then you never know. Right now, the shooting that we had in the Bronx, it was 2 young men. One was shot in the head, 15 years old. They were coming out of the PAL. They were doing the right thing. They were coming out of the police athletic league. Some argument ensued. The kid that got shot was 15 years old. Pre-pandemic, he was a foster child, him and his brother. They were in our after-school program, and they were looking to better their lives. So, you know, talk about being at the wrong place at the wrong time, you know. And one area, we have to go up the higher echelon. We know that, you know, we want to blame the devil for everything, and it's true, because he is to blame for all the ills. But we have legislation that we need to look into, because, you know, they're buying a lot of illegal guns. They're not just walking into stores and buying guns. There's a lot of illegal guns coming into our borders. So, you know, this goes higher up into government, and we need to get it involved in legislation and the corruption that's going on, in the greed that's coming into our borders. The best prayer that I have said, not just for the kids in the streets and the families and the churches and all that, but I'm saying, Lord, cover our borders, because these guns are coming in and the kids are buying it. Violence has always been part of human life, from the moment that Cain killed Abel. You know, from the moment we were young and played with cowboys and Indians. The cowboys were the good guys and they killed the Indians. You know, we go online, our kids are online, and all you see in these games is violence. So to them, holding a gun in front of the TV and shooting like just shooting in front of the TV, it becomes a part of their mind, and they go out into the streets. And if there's peer pressure or they're being bullied in school, even a 12-year-old, he's being bullied, the first thing he's going to think of, I got to get a gun and stop this kid from bullying. So having these conversations is very, very important, but really getting involved into the nitty-gritty of hitting those streets. I'm not the person to hit the streets, but I will support organizations that are doing it. I will attend their meetings. I will speak, financially even help them because they're doing it. So there's so many areas that we need to get involved. Our main focus is, yes, prayer and looking at this, but also trying to build organizations that will really hit those streets for the youth and the young adults that are not coming into the houses of worship, that we can't get them to come into a house of worship because for them it's like, these bunch of old people, whatever. So it's, it sounds like a large task, but it's not impossible because the word says that I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens us. So it's important to just be able to get the word out every which way we can. Even Facebook and social media. Don't use, I see clergy using social media to defend their faith or to defend or to talk about other pastors or churches. No, use the social media as clergy to give forth, an inspiring word, a word that even if a youth sees it, he'll say, well, that kind of makes sense a little. Put things in there, stop using the social media for our own self-interest and selfies and all that. Use it for our calling is. The Lord said, go through all the world and spread this gospel. We can do it because we have social media right at our hands that reaches Pakistan, reaches everywhere. So let's use even that. I can't go out into the street and speak in a corner to gangs or anything, but I can use social media to bring out a good word and give some kid that, is being bullied and wants to commit suicide or go and kill someone to get rid of it. Let's use every means that we can and pray for our government to be able to pass legislation to take these illegal guns off our streets. That includes praying for law enforcement, for special victims unit. All that is included.
And pray against all this drug abuse that is coming up because they opened up a Pandora's back with all this pot.
The legalizing of marijuana.
All these things are not going to be beneficial. I've been around for a while. I've seen my neighborhood was destroyed when it first started with pot, then it went to opium, then it just kept escalating. And there's a lot of things. And then prayer is important, but I got a problem. I think that you have to pray for me. Because prayer should bring us revelation to be able to change the conditions of around. It's not just throwing words out into the air. I find that every prophet and everyone that prayed in the scriptures and any scripture, solutions came back, ideas came back that they implemented in their communities. And the prophet spoke, and the king spoke, and they created laws because the revelation would tell them, you got to repent, you got to go back and change your ways. So I think that they call me, go pray in this corner, go pray. Somebody was shot here or shot there. It hurts my spirit. I want to be able to have that God give me a revelation. What's there? If there's an evil spirit ruling that particular area, that community, because they're territorial, then I want to know his name and I want to cast him out in the name of the Lord. Because that's what the Lord told them, they're territorial spirit, but that will be going into spiritual warfare. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to, or go overboard. God bless you.
Man, thank you very much, the Rosarios. Thank you very much because both of you spoke volumes, and I'm really happy because a lot of things that you've said, especially with law enforcement as well, we've had some incredible captains and sergeants and police officers that come who are concerned, genuinely concerned, and want to be part of the solution, not the problem. And so they realize that they have to deal with the true stakeholders. And how do you really deal with the stakeholders to be more preventive than something, dealing with the post situation? Also, it's so true about, the pastors and the self-interest. We're not looking at it from the vantage point of why the words that God give us still can touch the heart of his children if you give it to them the right way. And many times you don't have to give them to them in just a religiosity way, but words of wisdom, because God breathes the breath of life into the nostrils of his children, and each child and each person who are born are designed to respond to God in truth. But how do we get that truth in the compoundness of and then all that quagmire of stuff that is preventing that truth to touch them? And we know what those things are: the community, the families, and the breakdowns and drugs and all those different things. So really grateful for all that you both have shared. And now we're going to look forward to having you both on again and have you to be one of our presenters in the future. And I look forward to it. And Bishop Nancy Rosario, you said something. We would like to have some of those people that you are in contact with to come on and share with us, because we've had some profound groups come on and prepare for, share with us. We would love if you can, have them as well to come on with us. Lastly, and I will open it up, is you're right. We are the guiders, the underwriters, religious leaders, but God has already set people up that can be the vehicles to begin to address certain issues. And we need to be there to support that as well. So that's why we want to put on the road, bring a collective body together with best practices, because many of these organizations, like no man is an island on his own, right? But we need to come together and look how we can bring the different components together and have a national address to the nation, to the politicians, and whatever we need to do. So we're looking at that, and I really appreciate both of you, all I say. And then last but not least, Bishop, 78? I didn't know. I thought I had a whole different number in my head.
Yeah, God has been good to me.
I think
25 grandchildren and 28 great-grandchildren.
No, 24 grandchildren and 27 great-grandchildren.
Oh my goodness.
6 of my grandchildren are pastors, and 5 of my daughters are pastors.
Oh
And
my.
they all work the streets, and but I am enjoying what you're doing. And like my wife said, we have so many different organizations, gang leaders, politicians. I'm an advisor with the mayor, I'm with the governor, and with the borough president. We want to be able to bring these people on and hold them accountable, and make sure that we get that. You said something about writers. We need underwriters to be able to write programs for us that we could get funded to help these organizations and help also, what we're doing, because like you just said, we're not an island to ourselves, but together we could do great work in this different areas and stop this evil spread of murder and killing and rape.
Oh, it's horrible. Yeah, it's horrible.
I appreciate your words, and we're gonna join forces with you in the name of the Lord. I thank Reverend God for asking us. He asked me last week to come on, and today we were able to come on, and I'm feeling the Spirit of the Lord in me. When I feel that, I know that there's something, good. It's been 61 years now doing ministry.
Amen.
Working.
Amen.
I praise God. God bless you again. Sorry for speaking out again. Yeah, I'm 70.
No problem. No problem.
You were. Look at this beautiful lady that God gave me. She's not a baby either. Okay.
I'll be 71 next month.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Beautiful. I've always have encountered with both of you. It's something Bishop Nancy you said something to me many years ago. I can never forget, but it was from the heart and it was real. It was earthy, it's a long story, but it was cute. I tell you, I was being very proper in manner and eating and stuff like that. And you said, look, put that foot, bend down and pick up that food. Let's eat like family. I said, that's my sister right there. That's what you need. Yeah. Okay. Love you. Thank you so much. And we look forward to collaborating. Anyone else as we come to our close?
Yes, Reverend Oliver.
Yes, please.
John O'Connor, just first like to thank you for doing the program, especially when you have the young lady from African American or Native American community. Very deep heart, and kind of opens up our hearts and lets us know there's another factor, another thing going on in the community. Also, the mother who lost her daughter through gun shooting and that. These are really helpful. They're not always exactly where you can figure out what's going on with the total crime situation, but I think that keep going like this every week, and you're going to find the most effective programs. And in this case, you might find also the most effective spiritual leaders who, combine their heart and their spiritual level with the practicality of different programs and helps combine them together, because you need the spirituality in all the things that you do, right? And if you don't have that, then they're not going to work as well. So I just encourage, continue the same and keep finding good nuggets out there. And there's going to be some great programs. We'll let the whole world know they're there and they can use them, copy them, and help their community. So compassion is, I think, the big thing we got to remember. Have compassion in all things we do and make it work. So just every week, keep going, and we'll support you in that. And God bless all the beautiful people come on and share their lives with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Brother O'Connor. Thank you so much for those profound words. And I would, the Rosarios, we know they're different. I always said there's different categories of issues and different cultural issues that we're not privy of. But if Geller or someone can send them the video of our Native American who came on, it opens up your eyes, to the other situations of our family that are out there that are also impacted by violence and impacted by, the system, if you will, as well, that has not been very helpful. So we really thank you for that. Really powerful.
One of our programs, Reverend Oliver, that was on the Wednesday program.
Yeah, it's I have it. I shared a little bit of it last week. It's the Native American. Her last name is Bull. I know that. Nice. And she shared. It was really profound, her sharing. And I think it opened up our eyes as well to be cognizant of, our community, that they're part of our community and they're going through things that are in parallel as well, that needs to be addressed. And she really opened up our hearts and our minds for that. As we close, I want to thank all, anybody like you get an opportunity with a little, got a few seconds if you like, someone like to make a last statement. I will call someone to make a last, if no one has a burning desire, if they would say something, then I'm going to ask Reverend David Reed to say a few words as we come to the close.
Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. Please pardon my picture. I was not expecting to be called on because I'm in the presence of people who are walking a tremendous course for for the world and for humanity and for God. And I just had to be a part of this, as we're inundated with violence everywhere we turn. And it just dawned on me that the isolation of people and the marginalization of people, no matter what community we're talking about, it has ramifications. It impacts people's lives. And it makes them feel a certain way in which they want to reach out. And when they reach out violently, which sometimes is the only course that particularly men feel is their only outlet. Sometimes that's how we feel as men. That's how we deal with that kind of situation. And it's been ingrained in our society, unfortunately. Unfortunately. So how do we dispel that? How do we encourage men to love their wives as their wives love them? How do we encourage the men to love their families as the mothers love the family? You know, I was really looking at that and self-reflecting, because is there a double standard there? So who's addressing these kinds of issues? And in terms of the church, you know, it's not an easy job. And I'm so grateful for those pioneers that are going out there and going outside the walls of the church and reaching out to the community, bringing in people who feel isolated, who feel marginalized, because that's one more soul that will not go down that violent course. That's one more community that might be spared the violence that we're seeing. You know, we need to get some people who are involved in the court system, because they see these cases every day. They understand why people are doing what they're doing and what the stories are behind some of these assailants and defendants. And it has ramifications on both sides of that judicial aisle. Nobody is being spared right now. So we have to break down those walls and barriers that make people feel isolated and marginalized. It could be any community, any young person can feel isolated and marginalized, and they're very sensitive. They know when the larger community does not love them. We have to give our young people credit and say, sorry that I don't have even more time to give you. I'm sorry that I haven't reached out to you before now. So I'm just grateful for those of you who have taken the time to come and listen. And I just wanted to share my reflections as I watch the news and as I listen to the stories of many victims around the country. And I look at the ingredients that we're giving our young people. They're not the ingredients that are going to make for a pleasant outcome.
Which is true.
So we have to make some changes. God bless you all. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. And that's the point of we're looking at the as you said, the outcome. That's why we have to begin to look at the root and the triggers that there are out there that we need to address more succinctly.
Yes.
And then we can come to some more resolutes that I think that it can work. God said it worked. It can work. It's what are the impediments? What are all of those things that prevent us really coming together is what we should fight against. Not fight against each other. We should fight against what stops us as religious people of conscience coming together to heal the problem that God said we can heal. So I want to thank everyone. I really appreciate you. I'm so glad the Rosarios finally came on. We're happy to see you and we're looking to collaborate with you. You guys are wonderful, always. Such a wonderful duel. You guys are always together and a powerful couple making impact, not only in our communities, but I know you've made impact in people's hearts. God bless you. Thank you, Dr. Alexander and everyone, Reverend Franklin and Reverend Reed. Thank you for your last comments, and Reverend Brother O'Connor. And on those who are listening, thank you, because even your listening ear plays a critical role in the healing process. We love you. We will see you next week, next Wednesday at the same time, 2:00. Thank you so much for being part of the solution. As we know, there's so many people are being part of the problem. God bless you.
Thank you, Reverend Oliver.
Thank you so
God
much,
bless
Reverend
all.
Oliver.
Stay safe.
Thank you. God
God
bless
bless you, Reverend
everybody.
Oliver.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much.
God bless.
Thank you, Rev.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Bless each and every one of you. It's a pleasure. Thank you. Much love in the name of the Lord. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you.
So much.
Amen. Thank you all. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Reverend Oliver. Thank you, Bishop Rosario.
Thank you, Daryl. Good to see you.
Hey,
David,
same
good to
here,
see you.
Wayne. Always a pleasure, my brother.
God bless you.
Oh, we
Thank
will
you,
meet
Reverend
again.
Oliver.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.
Love you.
Bye-bye.
All right, take care.
Hello.
Thank you,
Bye.
Reverend Oliver.
Thank you, Brother Healy. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
My